I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Maplewood Community Design Review Board. Today is Tuesday, October 15th, 2019, and our time is 5:30. This is not our normal time, but we have a large docket of materials to cover, so we are starting early because of that. I guess the next thing is the roll call, and I'm just going to note here that we're missing two people. We're missing Jason Lammers and Matt Ledvina. They are not here. The other three of us are here. That constitutes quorum. We will continue. Next is the approval of the agenda. Staff, anything you want to add to that?
Chair and board, staff does not have any amendments to the agenda as presented.
Anything from the board? No. Then I will accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting.
And I'll second.
And we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It carries. Next thing is the approval of the minutes of September 17th, 2019. Staff, anything?
Chair and board, staff does not have any amendments to the minutes as presented.
Okay. And then anything from the board?
Nope.
And you know what comes next.
I'll move approval of the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve, and
I'll
we
second.
have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. That carries as well. Next is new business, design review, building addition, B301, 3M campus. Staff report, please.
Chair and board, thank you. As we direct our attention to the screens for the slides, I'll walk through briefly to give an outline of the project. 3M is requesting approval of a building addition. This addition would be called B301. It's just over 11,000 square foot addition to B201. This addition would be a pilot lab for 3M consisting of equipment bays with a chemical storage, loading dock, and support spaces. It is before you tonight as this project needs design review to move forward through the city's process. The 3M campus is guided by the 2040 Comprehensive Plan as employment, and the zoning of the entire campus is heavy manufacturing. The site that we're looking at, again, B301, is on the southwest corner of the campus. So again, if we're looking at the site plan, this is 94, McKnight to the west. That red box indicates the area that we are looking at tonight. 301 is indicated within the site plan that was included with the plans that were attached to your packet. As part of the building project, the applicant is proposing 17 new trees to be planted along the private drive. This building is accessed, as most of 3M is, through private drives, internal roads that serve the campus. The primary building colors, again, which were included with the building plans in your packet for tonight's meeting, include a black precast veneer, alternating all the other materials between a black precast sandwich panel, dark flat lock zinc metal panel, and a curtain wall, which utilizes a glaze system with 3M film at the pedestrian level for visual security. The addition itself will be just under 38 feet and approximately 4 inches shorter than the adjacent B201 building. So with that, staff is recommending approval of the design plans for the B301 building addition on the 3M campus. I know the applicant is present and can stand for questions and provide a little more context to the project tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just want to note that Anat Shankar is recusing himself from voting on this matter, and but we do appreciate his input, so we will, we look forward to him making comments and asking questions.
Thank you.
So any questions for staff?
So Mike, parking in these kind of is all taken care of because you look at it from a campus-wide scenario? Is that?
Board and Commission, that's correct. The 3M campus, the majority of the 3M campus is under one legal parcel. So we do consider all the buildings and all the associated parking lots when we calculate those parking requirements, excuse me. We also should note that with the neighboring neighborhoods, both to all sides, we've never heard of a parking shortage developer 3M spilling into nearby neighborhoods for parking.
Then I just needed a clarification of something you wrote here. A 2-inch base. The background, on the second page, you write, the 2-inch tall base around the project is did you mean 2 feet?
Chair and board, that likely makes sense. That was taken directly from an email from James Nutt, from the architect. So we did take that directly from his verbiage. So we can amend that reference, but we would seek that clarification from the applicant.
Okay, any other questions for staff?
No.
Then I would, if the applicant is, well, I know the applicant's here because we just said so. So I'm going to invite the applicant to come forward and maybe just give us a brief rundown on this and be ready for questions. We do not need her to sign in?
No, she should. There is a form.
Sign in, okay. And then state your name and address for the record.
Yes, Tia Rosenberg's and personal address, or the address of the building.
Chair and commission, or chair and board, your firm's address would work.
That is a good question. 380 St. Peter Street, St. Paul, Minnesota.
Exactly.
Yes, right. And my name is Tia Rosenberg's. All right.
So you're seeing a lot of green and a lot of grayish black on the elevations.
Yes,
Yes.
I am.
So I'd like to bring forth these exterior images, and I also have some exterior materials for you to review today.
Okay.
The design of this building, so as was mentioned, this is attached, it's an addition to the 201 building on the 3M campus. It is located at the corner of McKnight and 94. The addition is on the east side of this 201 building, which is the original building on campus, and it sits between 201 and 230. So this new addition, with the design of this, because it's touching the original building on campus, we wanted to make sure that this was a very respectful addition to this campus without nothing too loud. We wanted to draw from the existing architecture rather than replicate it. And so what you'll see is all of the datum lines, the horizontal datum lines are represented, or are coming from the original architecture. So all of those follow through. And then the other thing is the mullions and the glass, which we have examples here for you to look at, they match the existing building. So that is something that will carry through the addition. We also wanted to look to the future of 3M with this design, and so the massing and the material palette is more in line with what you're seeing in the new building at the parking structure that was recently built. And so we have a base and some materials that are the precast, the dark precast concrete, and the 2-foot base is correct. That was a correction that we noted. So that is officially correct. And then the dark zinc panel is also here. So I have examples. And then there's a fogged glass that you have in your hand there.
Got a question about this.
Yes. That was for we recycled that sample from a previous materials board. So that is, yeah, that's just something for, it's Velcro. So yeah,
Okay.
It's just the film.
All
And
right.
that would be applied primarily it's the first floor in the areas that where privacy is significant. So, yeah. Anything else? It's kind of the concept. And then I can hand you this.
Yeah, you might get tired of holding that one, so. Yes. I wouldn't want
See why?
You can hand it to
Here, catch.
Yeah.
Got it? Okay. Thanks.
you want to put it down? Just trying to be considerate.
Anything else?
No?
All right.
Mr. Chair, Tia, can you talk a little bit about signage on the building? How is it, what are we planning to add to the building for signage other than 301?
We haven't been involved in the conversations about signage at this point. I think it's just the 301. That's kind of what we're understanding, but do you have anything to add on that?
There's no anticipation to put anything other than a building number on this
Okay.
facility.
That's pretty consistent with most of the buildings on the
Right.
campus anyway. And if it did come up, you'd appear before us again.
Yes.
Chair and Commissioner, or Chair and Board, I can speak to one of the individuals from the 3M's Facilities Department is working on a campus-wide sign plan that would incorporate many of their standard building signage. As you may recall, when Building 220 had the film applied to their main tower building, that was the first establishment of a comprehensive sign plan for the 3M campus. So they are planning to come back to essentially codify all the existing signage standards that they already use and some other potential directions they might go with signage into the future. So that would be a separate item from this building addition, obviously, but that would come before the board at a later date.
Okay?
Since Matt is not here, I'll ask a question he normally would ask.
Okay.
Is that about stormwater ponding? Did this building require any ponding?
You have all stormwater retention element as part of our design.
Excellent.
Yeah, so we have an underground detention plan for this site, and we have submitted to the Ramsey Washington Watershed District and have gotten preliminary approval from them.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
I think it looks good. So, I guess I'll make a motion then. That I move that we approve the design plans, date stamped October 1st, 2019, for the building addition B301 located within the 3M campus. Approval is subject to the applicant doing the following,
1 through 8?
1 through 8, unless some of these are planning things.
Chair and Board, this project only requires design review, so all 8
Okay.
apply to you.
1 through 8, then.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, and a second. Any other discussion?
I'll abstain.
And, okay, so then call it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye,
Aye.
and we have 1 abstention. So the motion passes. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is design review, LM Care Senior Housing Facility, 1534 County Road C East. Staff report, please.
Chair and Board, thank you. As the chairperson just mentioned, we are looking at a request by Elam Care for a new 141-unit senior housing building. The structure itself would be just under 100,000 square feet in size. This would take place at the existing community gardens that are located at the southwest corner of Hazelwood and County Road C. This is currently owned by First Evangelical Church, and they operate it again as a community garden site. The overall site is 17.15 acres in size. The senior building that you're looking at tonight would encompass 7.15 acres of the site. And then this would be a unified site plan, so when the Planning Commission looks at this later tonight, they'll be looking at a planned unit development request because the church that owns it does plan into the future to relocate and build a new church building on this site as well. In the interim, they do intend to continue use of the community gardens on the remaining portion of the site. So the applicant is requesting 4 city approvals to move forward: comprehensive plan amendment, plan unit development, as I just mentioned, a lot division, and design review. The board is being asked to look at design review, which is item D on your staff report, so that bleeds into the second page. That's where those conditions start. The planning commission later tonight will be holding a public hearing and considering the other 3 items. So again, I just want to mention the plan unit development means a type of development characterized by a unified site design with 2 or more principal uses or structures. So that's why this project qualifies and is moving forward with that request. I'll just briefly touch on the comprehensive plan amendment. The current 2040 guidance for this site is low density residential. The zoning is also single-family residential. Moving forward, the applicant is requesting approval of high-density residential for the senior care facility. So again, that's the just over 7 acres portion of the west side of the site. And then institutional guidance, which is what churches have been guided throughout the site, throughout the city. Not just churches, but semi-public type uses tend to fall under institutional. The project itself does meet the density requirements of high-density residential. In fact, they could have more units under the maximum, so they are not maximizing the site, given the comprehensive plan high-end density range. The project does meet several of the comprehensive plan housing goals as outlined in the staff report that the Planning Commission will be looking at tonight. I'll walk through the plan unit development points, as that does talk about site plan issues that you will be considering tonight. The proposed senior housing facility and the future church will share that the main access to County Road C, that's east of the proposed senior care building, as well the existing community garden use. Again, another reason a plan unit development is justified in this case. The zoning ordinance in PUD situations allows flexibility from strict ordinance compliance for both internal and external design requirements. Again, highlighting the uses, senior housing facility and that future church, which I already mentioned. The community garden, when they are more than 1 acre in size, also requires a conditional use permit be approved by the city council, so we are building that into the PUD approval as part of this project. A parking waiver is being sought by the applicant, and they are using their experience from other projects that they currently own and manage in the area. And if you have questions about that, I'd be happy to entertain them, but I think the applicant would also be more than happy to talk about their experience with parking requirements. Typically, on a multifamily building project, 141 units, as this project is moving forward with, 282 spaces would be required, with half of those covered, meaning either underground or in garages on the surface. The applicant is proposing 74 surface parking spaces and an additional 63 underground spaces. So they are asking for a waiver of 145 spaces. Again, this has been a consistent ratio that we've seen with other senior housing facilities of this kind in the past of this, when the city has approved similar projects. The PUD has built-in conditions that if additional parking is required, if a shortage then develops, that the applicant would be required to build out into the remaining portion of the site additional parking. There is the intention that once the church site is built and operating, that there would be opportunities for shared parking there once the site is completely built out. The other area they're looking for flexibility is floor area of the individual units. The facility is independent, proposed independent 1 and 2 bedroom units do meet those city requirements, the minimum floor areas. The studio minimums is the same as 1 bedroom minimums for the city, 500 square feet. They are proposing, the applicant is proposing 380 square feet at their smallest end for studio units. And then their skilled nursing and transitional care units range from anywhere from 380 to 710 square feet. So again, we're building that into the plan unit development. The building height does call for anything, the city regulations call for anything higher than 3 stories to be approved through a conditional use permit. Again, in Maplewood, a plan unit development is approved via conditional use permit, so that's another item that we're building in. One item here, the last point on the PUD, will affect this group at a later date. All PUDs require comprehensive sign plans. So before any signage can be posted for this development and any future phases, a comprehensive sign plan does need to come back and be approved by the CDRB. Now, to more specific design review criteria, the site plan itself, the applicant is proposing 2 access points, both to County Road C East. You can see the west 7 acres shown on your screen here. The shared access would be here on the east, the future shared access, and then another access point that would tuck behind the building on the west side, leading to the underground parking garage as well. Ramsey County has reviewed this project, given that this is a county road. They have indicated to the city that there will not be any additional access points granted to County Road C. So when that church phase does progress into construction, they would be looking for, proposing if they were desiring additional access to the city street, Hazel Street to the east. Landscaping, the building is designed to incorporate courtyards, as you can see by the shape of the building and how the planting plan is being proposed. 87 new trees and numerous shrubs and perennials are being proposed throughout the site. The applicant is required to meet the tree replacement ordinance. They are aware that their current tree plan is short of the caliber inches required, and they do realize that they can either plant more trees on the site or pay into the tree fund for the city. So they are working through those details and likely will pay into the tree fund for anything they are short. Before a building permit can be issued, the applicant will also be required to submit a photometric plan that meets all city requirements, and that would be for staff approval. The building elevations that are proposed, and again, included with this packet tonight, this is a rendering. The renderings and building elevations were both included. The materials include asphalt shingles, stone veneer, fiber cement shakes, and board and batten siding. Staff does believe that this building is designed attractively and also designed to fit in with the character of the existing neighborhood. Should point out, as we're looking at this rendering, the 3-story portion of the building does sit back on the site further from County Road C, where the 1-story portion is closer to the road. Last thing I'd like to point out is the public engagement. The applicant did hold a public meeting earlier this spring, a neighborhood meeting, I'm sorry, that they held on their own and invited neighbors within 500 feet. The city also sent out notices within 500 feet of the site that encompasses 82 property owners. We received 7 responses, which were outlined in your staff report. Staff is recommending approval of the design plans. Again, that's letter D in your staff report tonight, and can stand for any questions. The applicant is also here for questions and project overview. Thank you.
So do I understand that when the church builds at that point, the county will not grant any more access off County C?
Chair and board, that's what the county has relayed at this point. When they are ready to move forward with proposing a project, we could get together in a room again and discuss access points and how things are working at that current date, but that's the indication that they have given us at this point.
Okay. So is it staff's feeling that that the proposed access will be adequate to serve both buildings?
Chair and board, excuse me. Yeah, staff at this point does not have concerns, given that churches obviously have peak periods when they're in operation, and that we don't necessarily expect this use, the senior housing use, to be a huge traffic driver on a day-to-day basis. So we do feel that there's some cohesion between the two uses, where that main access point off County Road C and then additional access off Hazelwood should be sufficient when we get to that point. But that is something that will, as a city, will reserve the right to review when the church gets proposed and we can see their specific plans.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
It looks like we are granting 2 large variances. One is the 580 square feet minimum for studios. Where is that coming from? Is that in the code?
Chair and board, correct. And so because of the plan unit development component, that's where the flexibility requests have come in, and that the city has granted that on unit sizes for other senior care facilities in the past, but yeah, that 580 minimum, it's the same for a studio and a one-bedroom based on Maplewood's code right now. It's the same minimum. So again, the applicant, their one-bedroom units will meet that minimum. They're asking for flexibility on the studio units.
Okay. Is that something that we're to make a judgment on, or is that more of a planning?
Chair and board, I think it's acceptable to be talking and have a full understanding of the project, but you're correct. That is an interior component of the building itself and a request that's being made through the plan unit development.
I'm thinking maybe it's best if the applicant were to come forward. Applicant is here? Yes?
Chair and Board, my name is Andrew Santani. I'm with Elam Care. I'm the oversee building design and construction. So I have our civil engineering team, architectural engineering team, and a representative from First Evangelical Free Church as well in attendance. So,
Okay. Could you also, you already stated your name and your company. Can you also sign in?
yeah, we'll do.
Okay. We'll give you a moment for that.
Thanks.
And while you're doing that, is there anybody here that, from the public that wanted to speak on this matter? Okay, that simplifies it. So we,
Mr. Chair?
yes.
Michael, quick question for you. Right on the parking issue, how do you determine at some point in the future whether there's a need for additional parking? The streets that are around here typically are not going to be the kind, people are not going to park on County Road C because there's no parking. So how do you determine when additional parking is needed?
Sure, Chair and Board, as part of so later when the Planning Commission is considering the PUD aspect of it, in Maplewood, PUDs are reviewed annually until the council gives indefinite approval. So part of those reviews involves a staff member going out to the site on at least an annual basis to check to see how the project's
Okay.
functioning. Really though, for a parking issue, we're gonna hear about it before we go out there. So we're gonna hear from neighbors, potentially residents of the facility itself, if there's a parking issue.
Got it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
If it is deemed that they need more parking, is there, on the site plan, do they show where that can be accommodated?
Chair and Board, as part of the plans that were submitted, no, they're not showing necessarily proof of parking. We do know that the PUD will cover the entire 17 acres. And so that's where staff at least felt comfortable as proposed that we would be able to work with the applicant to determine where that parking could be located. But I think we can take information tonight from the board, and if the Planning Commission felt a similar concern, I think it'd be completely reasonable to require a site plan that showed proof of parking before we issued any kind of approvals.
Okay. And you are with the architectural firm?
I represent Elam.
Elam, okay.
Yes.
Could you tell us like the level of care at this facility?
Yeah.
What kind of patients? And what I'm getting at is,
Yep.
Are these people going to be?
They're not going to be driving much.
They're not going to be driving
Yeah,
much.
and that's why the number's a lot lower than what you
Right.
would maybe anticipate. So what tolerated at length the lower number of parking is we have a very similar building with a very similar unit care mix in Maple Plain that's currently under construction. And we spent extensive time with the city of Maple Plain proving out this exact question. Because you say, okay, you've got 141 people plus staff in a building. How do you make that work? Well, there's 64 of those 141 beds are skilled nursing beds. Those 64 residents don't drive. They don't even bring cars to the site. 16 of those 141 are memory care residents, AL memory care. They don't drive either. So you're already at 70, what are you at 70, 80 beds already. So then with the remaining beds that we would reference, we reached out to a couple of our marquee facilities in the Southwest Metro in Eden Prairie and Plymouth. Between those two buildings, I think it was about 140, 150 total residents between those two buildings, and said, of your resident count, how many people actually have cars? So one of them that had 62, I think, residents said, we have 2 residents that have cars in our underground garage of 62. And they don't even drive them, they just store them. So what they do is their underground parking becomes literally storage. So if you need to store a boat out that way, give me a call. Same feedback at the other property. Their underground parking garage is vacant. Families store extra cars there. So felt very, very comfortable with reducing, what kind of standard ratios to maybe on the slimmer side. But we're also seeing that the trends are showing that residents are not bringing cars. What we recognize in the market is that families use this as an opportunity to remove mom and dad's keys. So that's what they leverage the transition. Leverage is a strong word, but it's an opportunity in this transition. So.
And then staff, obviously, you are in agreement with that too, and that's part of your recommendation.
Chair and board, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
That's good to know.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Andrew, can you talk a little bit about, I'm looking at the future of the site, and will you build a church? If they're not going to allow access off of County Road C, everything's going to come in off of Hazelwood. Unless, I suppose you could use that, Mike, can you throw up the site plan? So there's the access road, it'd be on my right-hand side.
Yep.
Yep. And I suppose you could bring that all the way down. You lose a couple of parking spaces and angle back into the church. But is there any idea of what the plan is for the church and access?
John Addington's in attendance here. We haven't talked about this at great length as far as what that means for their future development. When we've talked about the development of the east side of the property, we use timeframes around 25 to 50 years because the church isn't sure what that timeframe is. So to solve it today would be we'd still have to come back and revisit. What I would say is this, because I know where you're going, and I think everybody would ask this question. There's a couple important things to keep on the table is that there's a long-standing, decade-long conversation that's been going on with the church. So there's a healthy relationship there. Additionally, Elam Care is partially owned by the North Central District of the Evangelical Free Church, and also is Maplewood First Evangelical Free. So we have faith-based ties, faith-based ownership and oversight. So it's in our best interest to figure this out. Additionally, we have an open dialogue and conversation that we keep charted and are charting through what we're referring to as a memorandum of understanding. This item is a key item that would go into that document. And in the future, if I'm no longer with our organization, if our CEO, president is no longer with the organization, the representatives at First Evangelical Free Church aren't there, this document lives beyond us, and that's the way it's approached, that we as Elam need to be flexible to figure out how we can help them come to this property. The idea and the inspiration of coming to the west side is knowing that they want to be on the east side at some point, and we need to be in a position to help make that happen.
That's helpful, Andrew, but the crux of my question has more to do with the neighbor complaints, the neighbor comments about increase in traffic, and at some point, church coming in, and church coming back to the city or to the county and saying, oh, we do need access onto County Road C, and that creates 3 points on just the one side of the road, and I see that as an issue for the neighbors going down, into the future.
Chair and Commission, or Chair and Board, I'd just interject at one point. So how this project is being reviewed at this point in time is that access that is highlighted is intended to be a shared access. So the church will have access to County Road C. Now, a couple scenarios I could see happening when the church comes ultimately in, whenever that date might be, to develop their portion of the site, that access might need to be rebuilt. But I think what the county is stating is that they don't want additional access
Right.
points. But there could be a single, still shared drive if this doesn't meet the needs of that future site, that could be reconfigured in some fashion that would meet the use of both properties. Now, whatever gets approved in a PUD today is always, has the potential to be amended by future councils and applicants of tomorrow. So what we're looking and analyzing are the plans that have been submitted, what we know today, what those constraints are. And we do know that this is intended to be a future shared access, and we as a city in reviewing that do feel comfortable because both uses will have at least two access points, where the senior building will have two directly off County Road C, where they don't have other rights of way to be accessing anyway, and the church will at least have one on County Road C and then an additional one on Hazelwood at that future date.
Understood. Thank you.
And I could see that if they had another access on C, that new access would be closer to the intersection, and access that's close to the intersection just kind of creates some traffic problems in itself.
Chair and board, that's
Especially on
one of the,
Sunday morning.
if they were
Huh?
gonna
Especially on
propose,
Sunday morning.
Yes.
if they were gonna propose moving where this access point is now, which does, it's right where the property line would come together, that is something, of course, that the county would review, and they have very strict access management guidelines, and they wouldn't be looking to create any conflicts at the intersection.
Another question for you. The fire station that is on the other side of Hazelwood, what is the plans with that? Is that one going to be rebuilt, or is that going to be eliminated?
Chair and commission at this, or chair and board, I'm sorry, the city council has not made any final decisions on the
Okay.
fire station.
And that's the answer. We don't know.
Did you say you have facilities in Eden Prairie and Plymouth?
Yeah, we operate in 5 different states. We have 66 properties in those 5 different states.
So the building materials you're proposing for this would be consistent with the building materials you have in those 2 other places, or is this totally independent?
They'd be similar in nature, similar in quality. So we do have a couple example boards.
Which is the material that is the majority of the facade?
Yeah, majority of the facade would be in a hardy board or what they call smart siding, which is a wood panel look. Basically carries the same look of what you see in front of you. One's a wood composite, one's a concrete composite.
Here?
So there'd be a series of lap siding,
That's the roof.
shingle siding as well, with some sewn bases on some of the, kind of the accent bump
So
outs.
this stone, that'd be like the pediment?
I'm sorry?
The stone would be the pediment of the building?
The stone would be the ledge, and
The stone or
then that stone would be
precast?
that's what you would see in the elevation.
Sure.
Is this on the base?
That right there is a stone cap sill.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Gotta keep them separately, but yes, to answer your question,
Yeah.
this would be the stone base.
Okay.
And how high does that one go?
I think right now, I don't know if you have the elevation or.
I don't have the.
I got it here.
Yeah.
You just point it out.
So at
This.
these bays and
And
also
this.
kind of go up over.
Oh, okay, not just a base, but just,
Yep.
yeah, okay,
Exactly.
I got it.
Top of the base have that. And then we gotta mix it with lap. and board that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is the window frame?
And that is a white composite.
Okay. They don't need to see it. We can just put it up here.
Mike, on this site plan, north was up, and on the south side, there was a skinny little road, or is that a walkway or something south of the building, where we have the trees?
Yeah, chair and commission,
Fire access lane?
that is an emergency access.
Fire emergency access?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? Does someone care to make a
I
motion?
will make an attempt here.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve design plans, date stamped October 1st, 2019, for the 141-unit senior housing building to be considered at 1534 County Road C East. And approval is subject to items 1 through 9 identified in staff report. Okay, don't leave me hanging here. Somebody's got to
Okay,
second it.
well,
I'll second.
and that's under letter D,
Correct.
under letter D. Okay, we have a second? I'll second it.
Okay.
Nobody else did. Any other discussion? Nope, I have nothing else, so we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 It's unanimous.
So, thank you.
It's a nice-looking project, Andrew.
So you're gonna have to deal with me again, because I'm on the planning commission. So I'm just getting warmed up. Okay, good. Now we will move on to item number 3, design review, Carver Elementary School addition and remodel, 2680 Upper Afton Road East. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair and Commission. Again, we're looking at 2680 Upper Afton Road, the existing Carver Elementary School. The school district is proposing to do a significant building addition and remodel project to the existing school site. It would be highlighted or rooted in a new 3-story academic wing. Comparing the existing footprint to the proposed footprint, there would be an approximate increase of just over 31,000 square feet of the footprint itself. But again, the academic wing would be 3 stories, adding to that square footage. To move forward, the city requires a conditional use permit amendment and design review. Again, you're looking at design review, which is item B on your staff report. That's on the first page that starts. This site does have a conditional use permit already, as all schools require conditional use permits, and they are allowed in any zoning district with that CUP. The site plan, as proposed, it's shown on the screen and also included with your packet materials tonight. A portion of the existing building on the north side of the site will be removed. That new academic wing that I mentioned would be built to the southwest corner of the site, so looking over here. The site currently has 3 access points that are more bunched together in current days, or current day existence. The applicant's plans show that those 3 access points would be more spread or shifted throughout the site. This is in an effort to separate the parent drop-off and pickup traffic from the bus traffic. The bus traffic would occur on the east side of the site, where the parent pickup, where you can see the loop that would occur on the northwest portion of the site. The fire department is going to require a trail around the building, essentially from the parking lot to the playground area, which is proposed to be on the south side of the site here, again for emergency access situations. The parking lot is actually adding 34 more spaces to the site than it has currently, for a total of 124 spaces. The code for schools requires 1 space for every 20 auditorium seats. This project far exceeds that requirement with the 124 spaces. Landscaping for the site, 48 trees would be removed, which is at less than 20% of the overall tree count on the site. So they are required to have a 1-to-1 basis for tree replacement, and the applicant is proposing 116 new trees be planted in addition to 356 shrubs that would be sited throughout the property. So the tree replacement requirements are being met, as I just mentioned. One other aspect, the light poles that are being proposed are 27 feet in height. The maximum to code allowance is 25 feet, but the code empowers the CDRB to allow taller light poles as part of a design review for non-residential development based on appropriateness for a specific proposal. Staff did review the location of those poles and proximity to what they're illuminating on the site in comparison to where the residential properties fall on the north side. And with the photometric plan that was submitted as part of the project plans. So staff does not have a concern with the slightly taller poles, but that is a CDRB decision if that's something you would like to explore more tonight. The building elevations, as you saw with your package tonight, will be a pretty robust and change for the site. If you've been out to that, got a chance to go visit the school, either as part of this project or have been there previously. Those building elevations include insulated precast concrete panels, cast-in-place insulated concrete foundation wall, curtain wall glazing, canopies made of steel framing clad with that fiber cement panel system, and then the rubber roofing system. This was all detailed within the applicant's narrative and the plans that were submitted before you tonight. We did send out neighborhood surveys to property owners within 500 feet of this site, so that encompassed 52 property owners. We did receive 2 responses that are detailed in your staff report. And again, finally, staff is recommending approval of the design plans. Again, that's item B in your staff report tonight. And I know the applicant is present and has some visuals that they brought along too to show you, to give a little more broader picture of what the project will encompass.
Okay. Any questions for staff? No. I've got nothing. So the applicant would like to come forward, state your name, address, and sign in, please.
My name is Troy Miller. I'm with LHB, Architects and Engineers. Our address is 701 Washington Avenue North, Suite 200, Minneapolis, and just here representing the school district. Randy Anderson was unable to attend, given the time today conflicting with other meetings, so he sends his apologies.
Okay. And while you're signing in, I'm just going to ask, is there anybody in the audience that wanted to speak on this matter? No? Good. We'll just give you a moment to finish that.
Is the bus drop-off area changing?
Yes, the bus drop-off area is actually moving to the east side of the building. And again, we're doing that to create greater separation for the bus area from the parent drop-off.
So what I'm seeing is the buses come in and then they park at an angle?
Correct. Only during the afternoon loading. So during the morning, they will drop off parallel to the curb. And that's just because when buses come in, it's staggered throughout the morning versus at the end of the day. They're all stacked and awaiting the student release.
So the afternoon loading, they will park at an angle?
Correct.
Load up, and then how do they get out?
They basically make a loop as if there's a cul-de-sac at the end of the parking area, and they make that loop and then head out the opposite direction. It's pretty standard in terms of what we do across the area.
Mr. Chair. Troy, the additional 2 feet on the light poles, what's the reason for that? I don't see it as any big deal, but I just wondered why.
It just basically has to do with the photometrics.
photometrics, okay.
Yeah, so in order to get the light levels that we want, for safe and secure, we needed that 2 additional feet without adding more light poles. And given the cutoffs that we have with LED lighting now for lighting control, it's much easier today to accomplish a cutoff than it was even 5 years ago. So rather than adding multiple poles, which just become a greater maintenance issue, as well as snow removal and things like that, we elected to head down that path.
One more, Mr. Chair, if I may. Troy, one of the comments from the citizens had to do with the sidewalk along the, let's see, it would be the north side, kind of where, it looks like where the new monument sign is going to go.
Okay.
And is that sidewalk scheduled to be replaced?
Yes.
It is, okay. So that would alleviate that issue.
And that's part of this project?
Correct.
Okay. Sorry to jump in on your thing.
That's a good point. Yep.
If you're talking the sidewalk that runs along the street,
Yeah.
the sidewalk that runs along the street we're replacing the sidewalk where we're crossing it, and making sure that we make repairs in accordance, I believe, is
Okay, so-
what's being proposed. We're not replacing the entire sidewalk.
It may or may not then rectify the issue that
Chair and Board, I can interject there too, as Upper Afton Road itself is scheduled, don't hold me, it's not next year, but in the upcoming near future, in terms of years and public works projects, that would be a road that is going to be worked on, and the sidewalk would be
sidewalk,
part of that.
okay?
So the three-story building has a flat roof.
Flat roof, correct.
Is there any mechanical units going to be sitting on the roof?
There are, on the north side face of the building, we have the chiller as well as the generator that sit on top of the first floor roof. And we have the screening and whatnot in place to make sure that it's not visible to the public. All other mechanicals are located in mezzanines within the building.
Blend that versus out here.
What is the screening material?
The screening material is metal panel to match with the other metal that runs across the face of the building. So the white and the phenolic would continue across that area as well.
Did you bring samples?
Did not bring samples, but we did bring a rendering.
We love to look at samples.
Yep.
Commission for 9 years. I don't know how much samples need in terms of the story, but. Yep.
Oh, and Mike, we did note your new highlighting device or software.
Ah, somebody got a
That's
new
very
toy,
nice.
huh?
It just showed up.
I tried to pause it, but it disappears from the screen. So when you're looking at the okay, so when you're looking at the image right here, the area that is white, which would be to my left, that area is the kitchen cafeteria. Beyond the yellow is the new main entry, and then the piece that follows in terms of 1 story is the administrative area. The sidewalk that comes out, you can see the landscape element that we're intending to do, which when we're looking at parent pickup and drop off, students aren't always readily able to get into the school, so they sit outside and they wait for the doors to open. And so we've created lots of elements for them to sit and wait. The tall glass area that is on the right-hand side, the base that's in black, that's the hands-on learning labs that face Battle Creek Park. And we're working with the county right now on joint uses and to be part of their master plan to use some of that. And this right here is the media center, which is the tall glass area that is in the northwest corner of the building. So this is just a little element that shows the 3-story stair tower is almost triple in width to allow for a lot of students to be moving up and down. And then moving down the classroom wing, you can see what it's like inside the building and inside that 3-story area. So the number of students on the site will be going up a little bit, and that has to do with some of the resources and how efficiently they can be delivered. But the building basically is 3 stories because we're trying to limit the footprint due to stormwater management and a variety of other things. There's lots of 3-story buildings of similar size within the metro so that it's not unique. But on the exterior of the building, like I said, the white is actually metal panel. The brown piece across the bottom will be a charcoal gray blackish tone precast, and right now we're working with the precaster on what the texture will be because we don't want a flat panel. We want something that provides a little bit of life and a little bit of texture. And then what you see as yellow is actually it's a phenolic panel where we're taking actual wood veneer. It'll be, right now we're leaning towards maple. And that maple is the top layer of that resin panel. And so what you'll see is actually real wood with a resin coating over the top of it, which will add a lot of warmth to all the glass and metal and other surface materials that you see. We are adding a lot of landscaping, thinking about how it engages the community and what they see. That little teardrop shaped thing is actually a stormwater retention cell. And we're using that as a front buffer to hopefully soften the front of the building a little bit, just given its height. We did have a neighborhood presentation. We invited all the neighbors within 500 feet. 2 showed up, and their biggest concern was parking, and with good reason, and they all left satisfied that we're doing a much better job than what currently exists. And so they seemed quite satisfied with what was going on. So you can see above that darker area, that is where I mentioned the generator and the chiller is located. But it is a dramatically different statement based on what was talked about earlier. This is our fourth project now with North St. Paul in terms of renovations of buildings. And we went with precast because brick is just getting so expensive. There's just no masons out there. And so that's why we're looking at a heavy textured type precast to give it a little bit of friendliness, so to speak, instead of just a cold, flat panel. So we haven't received those samples back from the precaster.
Yep. At the beginning of the video, the parking area, who's using that parking area?
Staff and visitors.
They must be very well off. I noticed that there were 3 Porsche Panameras in the lot. And
That
one
would be the
Lincoln
young,
Stretch
yeah.
limo.
That would be the young man who creates the video imagery. I think he's got aspirations for one himself someday.
There were no Teslas there?
I didn't notice any Teslas, but Porsche caught my eye.
One of the license plates said Troy.
Yeah. Well, you're better at identifying cars than I am. I wouldn't know the difference between a Porsche and a Yugo, I think. But
Yeah, there was a white, dark gray, and a blue Panamera. And then the black Lincoln Stretch limo.
different makes or models at least, or are they the same?
No, they're the same model, Porsche Panamera. That's their sedan, or what they consider to be a sedan.
Well, if you have requests for what you would like to see in the parking lot, we'll take that for when we come and present John Glenn.
Well, I think some different Porsches, like some 911s would be good.
I'll see what I can do.
Yeah. But I think your plan looks really good, I think.
Thank
So-
you. Thank you.
It's kind of got a modern look to it, but were you trying to match any conceptual looks with other District 622 elementary schools in terms of materials or?
The first 2 buildings we did were Richardson and Castle. Castle was basically replicating what was there. It was the first building that the district started on. Richardson, we've totally changed the look of that building, received positive comments, and the district wanted to keep pushing the envelope. They really want to be seen as a district that is forward-thinking, that is different than their neighbors. They are competing for students on a daily basis with Stillwater, South Washington, and a variety of other districts. So they really want to change the image of the district and present something that is different than what people have seen before. And, we're keeping about a third of the structure that currently sits there. And so we're shrouding it with something different. When you see John Glenn, which will be coming in a few weeks, you'll see a very similar character in the architecture between John Glenn and Carver Elementary. So that is kind of becoming the theme of the district. It's affordable in its scale, and I think it presents a really user-friendly, but I think modern, contemporary image that I think parents and students are really going to enjoy. Even the interiors are stunning, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you're making me feel bad, because those look way better than the schools I went to when I was a kid.
Me as well.
Yours only have one room.
Thank you.
Both my son and daughter attended Carver Elementary.
Yeah.
The district's doing some phenomenal things with these projects. They're going to be closing Maplewood Middle School, so they're going down to 2 middle schools to align with the 2 high schools, and Maplewood will be converted to a brand-new elementary school site, and so you're going to be seeing a lot of the district with some of the projects that are going to be coming through. So they are touching 9 buildings and spending a total of about $350 million in modernizing the district across its entire footprint. So it's a pretty incredible thing that the district has in terms of an opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions from us?
No, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion to approve the design plans date stamped October 1st, 2019 for the building addition and remodel to be constructed at 2680 Upper Afton Road East And the approval is subject to the items 1 through 8 on the staff report.
I'll second it. Didn't leave you hanging this
No,
time.
thank you.
So- Okay, so we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? There is none. So we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous, and then this goes to planning then, right?
Sir, Chair and Board, yes, this item, the item you just reviewed, and the next item, all go to the Planning Commission tonight, and then are tentatively scheduled to go to City Council on October 28th.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Next item.
Take a short break.
Short break? Yeah. We're going to just take a 5-minute recess.
3.
3-minute recess. Agenda is design review, Frost English Village, commercial retail building, 1905 English Street North. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Chair and Board. We'll go back to our outline of the project. We are looking again at 1905 English Street. The applicant is proposing a 8,200 square foot commercial building. This would be the third and final phase of the Maplewood Bowl redevelopment project. To move forward, the applicant does need approval of a conditional use permit conditional use permit, a lot division, and design review. The CUP and lot division will be considered by the Planning Commission later tonight, and design review is before you tonight, and that is item C in your staff report, which starts at the top of page 2. I'll just highlight quickly, the lot division is notable because the applicant is purchasing the existing liquor store, which is immediately west of this proposed site, in between their Phase 1 building as well. And they would be demolishing that liquor store building and incorporating the property into the overall site that you're looking at tonight. The CUP aspect is for a drive-through, which is permitted in the mixed-use zoning district with that CUP. The drive-through would be east of the building and screened from the intersection with the landscaping that's been proposed. Also, this incorporates a parking waiver of sorts. And what that means is the commercial building itself would require 42 spaces based on the code requirement of 1 space for every 200 square feet. The project is providing 44 spaces. The applicant does not have, unless we have an update tonight, necessarily any specific users that have leased the space yet. So we wanted to incorporate if a cafe user, coffee shop, or other restaurant-type use would occupy the lease space where the drive-through is adjacent to, what would that do to that parking count? Because the parking for restaurants, cafes, and coffee shops goes from one to every 200 square feet for commercial buildings to one to every 50 square feet for areas that patrons have access to. So the parking determination gets a little more complicated there. So we use the example of the Starbucks that just opened at White Bear and B, just by our campus here, and use that if that were to fall into this building, what kind of parking counts would we get to? And that would increase the parking space requirements to 61, meaning that the site itself is short 17 spaces. So hopefully this makes sense, but phase 2, when that was built for the senior building, they included another 24 parking spaces that was built actually onto this phase 3 site that was always intended to be shared parking between phase 2 and phase 3. So when you include those shared parking spaces, then they would meet that overall parking count requirement, but we want to build that waiver into the conditional use permit that the planning commission will look at tonight, but has design impacts on what the site plan you're looking at, so that the applicant has that flexibility moving forward and that they wouldn't have to come back for a specific request once they have the building leased. Also, another design element that they're looking for consideration of the CUP, an increased front yard setback. The mixed-use district, which is different than our other zoning districts, requires a minimum of 0 for setbacks and a maximum of 10 feet, where the applicant is looking to have this building set back slightly further. Their phase 1 building is set back 20 feet, which is allowed for a multifamily building, the code, so that meets the code requirements. The proposed site plan that is before you tonight shows the building set back 23 feet. The applicant has a desire for the building to be set back so it is consistent with that phase 1 building and to allow a service sidewalk behind the building essentially to access all the tenant spaces. Staff is recommending that we continue to work with the applicant to bring that building at least forward to 20 feet to be right in line with the existing building to the west. So other site plan elements, the building again would be located just northwest of the Frost English intersection roundabout. The applicant again is purchasing the liquor store, incorporating it into the site. No new access points are being added to Frost or English. This is a unified site plan with the other 2 phases. So those access points on Frost and English already exist, 1 on each road. Landscaping, 14 new trees would be planted, as well as numerous shrubs planted throughout the site. The trash enclosure is included in the site plan to be built east of the site within that island where the drive-through lane is circling. We would require the applicant to submit plans to staff to ensure color and building material compatibility with the building before any permits are issued. This is a rendering of the proposed building. The staff report gets into discussion, again, because this building is zoned mixed use, where we have the primary materials shall cover at least 60% of all facades on the building. Secondary materials may cover no more than 30% of all facades on the building. The applicant has indicated they designed this building to be cohesive with the first 2 phases, which staff would agree has been achieved. The building elevations themselves, you can see, are being proposed with brick, lap siding, fiber cement panels, and rock face CMUs for the foundation. Based on the calculations of how those materials break down, again, these were from the applicant's plans. The primary materials are 42% and secondary materials are 35%. So staff is recommending that the applicant be required to increase the primary, reduce secondary before we issue any building permits. And we would be looking for feedback from the board on that tonight. So with that, the last item I will point out in here, again, we sent notices within 500 feet. That's 29 property owners. We received 1 response from a business owner nearby this site. That was detailed in your staff report. Staff is recommending approval of the design plans, again, starting at item C on page 2, and the applicant is present for any questions you may have. Thank you.
So is it brick they're proposing as the primary material that we would want them to increase area?
Chair and Commission, correct. Brick is considered a primary material based on code.
So we have 2 brick samples here. Are these both considered primary?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Do you want to see it?
So when you add both of them, they should exceed 60%.
Chair and board, that is what is prescribed in the code. The code also allows the board flexibility on those numbers. So that's why you would see in the staff report the recommendation doesn't say to meet those numbers per se, but just to increase one, decrease the other. But we're looking for feedback from this group tonight on where you would like that to go.
I just want to say, I'm a little sad to see that liquor store go, because it's one of the few remaining examples of MCM architecture. It's a rough one, but it's there, so we're missing something, but things go on.
Things go on. Board, and my name is Shane Lefebvre with Sherman Associates, representing the applicant here. Yeah, we kind of view this as the third and kind of the final phase. We see kind of an opportunity on that corner. The liquor store is on a bit of an island or a peninsula, kind of surrounded by other property, and that corner is kind of empty, right now. And we saw this as an opportunity to come in and hopefully preserve the store itself, not necessarily the architecture of the store, but to create some architecture that is complementary to what we already have, the other two buildings on the site, which seem to have been somewhat well received by the neighborhood. So we're hoping to continue on that success. Colin Coswilson is here. I will let him kind of speak to design-specific or material-specific things, but happy to answer any questions from an owner, applicant, developer perspective.
Okay. And did you sign in?
I did.
Great. You're alert, so.
All right, it's
good.
not my first time here.
Okay, any other questions for applicant or staff? Did you want to say something?
I can stand for questions, or if you would like me to address some concerns on the elevations, I have the PDF loaded.
Okay. The material on the parapet, is that like a steel? I assume it would be this color?
Correct. There's a board members, my name is Colin Koss with Koss Wilson Architects. I'll sign in just a second.
Okay.
Yeah, the parapet cap would be a pre-finished metal in a dark bronze finish. The metal sample is clipped to the brick sample on your left.
Yep. Okay, I see it.
Yep. And that's the same dark bronze metal that is on the senior building and the multifamily building.
Right.
You'll see it on the metal decks in the building adjacent to this proposed project.
So what is this material up here, this pilaster, is that metal?
That would be a cement board panel with a stucco finish.
And all this down here is the brick?
Correct. We're proposing two colors of brick because the adjacent building also has two colors.
okay.
And these are the exact colors of brick on the building right next door.
And then this is the pediment?
That's the base, correct.
Okay.
So the material palette, the paint colors, the brick, are all drawn from the previous two buildings.
Okay. Very good. And what about mechanical equipment? Where's that going to be located?
We are planning for some on the roof, and the elevations that we provided did show screening around them.
Okay. And how tall is that screening?
I don't know if we had a dimension in there. I think it was maybe left ambiguous for purposes of,
You found it. Yep.
is there a height? Okay. I don't honestly know the
4 feet.
size of the mechanical equipment yet, so
Okay.
obviously we'd want to adjust that once the mechanical equipment has been
And
properly
that'll
sized.
be on the west side of the building?
It's off-center, but it would be somewhat in the middle.
Okay.
We have the flexibility of having up to 4 or 5 tenants in the building, and there might be multiple rooftop units.
Okay.
Where did you say the dark brick was? Which elevation?
It's in between the corner elements. I can, if you'd like, I can
Yep.
walk
Yeah.
up there and point.
Yeah, I can see it here. So, just on the cover one. So-
Yeah, I was seeing it as the same color. Maybe it's just the rendering.
And
Okay.
if you take a look at This one here shows it, I think, a little bit better.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to make a recommendation to my fellow board members here.
Okay,
That the brick be continued up in these pilasters. It would achieve two things. One is it would break up this banding that is happening on top. And it will also increase the primary materials percentage of use in the building from 42 to something higher.
okay. I'm okay with that. Are you?
You're saying take the pilaster up to the parapet cap?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that
Just
would,
on, on the corners, right? Or?
In the body.
Each one.
Each
Oh,
one.
okay, I get it.
So each,
I think seems
Yep,
reasonable.
I understand now.
Yeah, I like the idea of keeping the signage happening on the cement board stucco panel. It's easier to repair as we modify the signage.
okay.
Suggesting changing that.
Yep, I
So
gotcha.
not that one, not that one, not that one, not that one.
Yep, no, I get it.
2, 3.
Are you understanding, Mike?
I am, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know whether you're going to achieve 60%, but it'll be more than what it is now.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? What about trash enclosures?
We didn't submit materials on the trash enclosure. That was our
Where would they
oversight. If we go back to the site plan, I can locate it for you. Right, yeah, it's in the middle of that circle, as highlighted by Mr.
Oh,
Martin.
in the,
Oh, I see.
So there's a box.
show me on yours,
I think it's right there.
right? Okay. It's kind of hidden in the trees?
Mhm.
Okay.
So.
We just
the-
want to make sure you got it. We've had applicants before that had no idea.
You know, it's important to have it, especially with the potential users.
Right.
And we also need to make it in a place where it's very easy for trucks to get in,
Yep.
get the garbage
And
and
plus, that's going to
recycling.
be in clear view of phase two of the project too, so.
Luckily-
Colin, do you see, excuse me,
Oh, yeah,
Go ahead.
do you see any issues with adjusting that setback to 20 feet versus 23 that you were looking for?
No, I don't really see any
Okay.
major issues. You can see on this site plan that there's the primary sidewalk that runs along Frost. We do have a loading area on the west side of the proposed building, and we know that we need service entrance and primary entrances, and so we have separated the primary sidewalk from the service sidewalk leading to the backs of the commercial bays. So the only reason we had it that way was just so that we could get a sufficient green strip where we have shown those trees between the primary sidewalk along Frost and the service sidewalk.
So is staff that wanted them to increase that setback or decrease it?
Chair and board decrease it.
Yeah,
Okay. I don't think it makes much of a difference.
Chair and Commission, again, we're starting with the standard that it should be, have a maximum of 10.
10.
And the building to the west is 20, so we're trying to find, how do we try to meet the spirit of what the site is, what the ordinance requirements, so we landed on 20.
Okay, well, I'm not going to fight it very much, it's just,
I don't know that we have a real strong feeling
Okay.
either way.
then
We can
it's a
make either-
non-issue.
Right.
We'll just skip over that. Okay, anything else?
Shane, do we have any prospective tenants at this point that you can share with us?
Other than relocating the liquor store, not at this point.
Okay.
You know, we have people who've shown interest, but the first question has always been, when can we open? And we haven't had a good date to give them yet until now. So we have engaged a broker and hope to have some prospects very soon now that we have a firm timeline in mind here.
Good, thank you.
If there's anything else,
I'll make a motion.
with your amendment then?
Yes.
Okay, have at it.
I'll make a motion to approve the design plans, date stamped October 1, 2019, for the 8,288 square foot building to be constructed at 1905 English Street North. Approval is subject to the points put there by staff, numbers 1 through 8, I am going to revise item 5B. I'm going to add to 5B to say that the buildings shall show extension of the brick at all the pilasters to the bottom of the parapet. And I'm also going to add item number 9, saying that the setback of the building shall be 20 feet.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call that to a vote, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. It carries. On to the next thing.
Appreciate your flexibility, guys.
Okay, and then, wrong color sheet here. Unfinished business, anything?
Chair and board, staff does not have anything further for you tonight.
Visitor presentations, anything? Nothing? So then, board presentations, anything? Staff presentations? Then I think adjournment would be appropriate. I will make a motion that we adjourn.
Second?
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're done. Okay, thank you.